I'm currently eating lunch. This is just some rice noodles with tahini sauce and some vegetables. And I thought as I'm eating lunch, I could answer some of your burning questions. I actually haven't filmed a Q&A video in, I think, honestly, probably 4 or 5 years. I feel like I do get a lot of questions on my streams and on my YouTube videos, and I thought I would just take the opportunity at the beginning of the year to answer all of those, especially for any of our new little Doodle friends out there who don't know who I am. I asked for juicy questions on my Instagram and you guys did not disappoint. You gave me quite a lot of juicy questions. Let's just start off easy, and the first person asked, if you do move, do you want to stay in Canada? I know there's been a lot of confusion about where I live and moving because I talk about moving and then I lived in some places for months and people just don't know where I am at any point. Currently, my permanent resident address is in Toronto. That's where I grew up, that's where my family is. Been living here for almost 4 years alone. I think the main thing that I've realized is that downtown Toronto, generally a very pleasant, safe place to live. But I don't know if it's for me. I haven't felt the most fulfilled and happy living here in a while. And I think most of that has to do with the fact that most of my friends don't live here in Toronto. I think because I didn't go to college or university, I dropped out. So most of my friends are from like high school or middle school or from the internet. Just due to the nature of that, they're kind of spread out. In November, I lived in LA, and that really gave me a taste of what it would be like to live there. And I did really enjoy it. I never thought I would be the YouTuber who'd be like, you know, moving out to LA. But it was really nice being surrounded by people who do the same things as you, having actual friends. I know, what a concept. Yeah, Toronto is just a place that I naturally ended up in just because I grew up here. And I do think I want to move eventually. I think it feels right, but there's a whole issue of like visas and all of that. So we'll see. I'm just kind of playing it by ear. Hopefully I figure that out. I really like this next question. It is the favorite and least favorite part of creating the doodle planners. It really is like the biggest labor of love for me. It truly feels like I'm birthing a child because it does take so long to create. As you guys know, I hand draw all of the illustrations inside the doodle planner, so that definitely takes the longest. I have to draw illustrations for each month, kind of format, layout them, change the lettering. We changed the font style and the mood trackers month to month this year, so the sheer amount of time that it takes is definitely my least favorite part because there's always a time crunch and deadlines for manufacturers, and I definitely pull many all-nighters when the doodle planner files are due. That is my least favorite part. There's no way to shortcut around it. It just kind of takes a lot of time. And my favorite part is definitely choosing the colors that come out each year. It's one of the best things. I just love colors and color stories in general. Especially this year, it was so fun to create the swirl planners, and I have some plans for next year's already, so it's gonna be really fun to pick next year's planner colors. Each year that we've done the doodle planner, there's definitely been a different vibe to the color palette that we go with, but I also think each year we've managed to have a good variety and pretty much please most people. I don't think I've ever seen a complaint about the color options, which is really nice to see. One of my goals for 2022 is to show you guys more of the behind the scenes of Shop AmandaRachLee. I think it would be really cool to do streams or vlogs where I'm showing you guys some of the process, like designing, packaging, and me drawing stuff and all of that. Did you go to college? If yes, where? And I got a couple other questions like, what did you study after high school? I don't know whether I've actually ever talked about this on my YouTube channel. I've definitely mentioned it on Instagram or live streams. I actually dropped out of university twice. In high school, I was definitely that overachiever kid. I was in so many extracurricular activities. I was in like student council, yearbook, so many different clubs. My marks were really, really high as well. And I did a lot of things outside of that too. Like I had a job, I volunteered and everything. And I will admit a lot of that was to pad my resume to get into universities, because I got into that mindset, which I think a lot of high school kids get into, where you're just trying to get into a good school, but not necessarily thinking about the purpose of why you're going to school or what you're actually studying or how that actually feels to you. I was just kind of doing it because I knew it was the next hoop to jump through in the more, I guess, conventional, typical way that you're, supposed to do life according to the traditional method where you're like high school, college, job. I just did it. I got into a really, really good business school. Obviously, my parents were really happy about that. And immediately I knew that business school was not for me. For any Toronto people, I can say this. I got into U of T Ramen Commerce, which is a pretty good business school in Toronto. And I dropped out within the first 2 weeks because I just knew. And at that point too, I was doing YouTube, but it wasn't big enough to be full-time. My Chinese parents obviously wanted me to go to post-secondary education of some sort. The agreement that we landed on after I had dropped out of U of T was that I would take a year off and apply to a program that I really actually did want to do, which was something slightly more creative. And in that deferral year, which is, I think it was 2016, 2017, that's when I was like, you know what, I have nothing else to do. Let me just do YouTube for this year while I was applying to other schools. So in that time, I did YouTube, really pumped out a lot of content, and things really took off. I think that was the year that I reached like 100,000 or 200,000 subscribers. Ended up going to a different school a year later in the fall, and eventually I dropped out of that school as well. So I did drop out of school twice, which is funny to say now. And I think I made a conscious choice to not talk about it too much on my channel because I don't want anyone to ever think that I don't value education. I think education and post-secondary education is so important, and I'm so grateful to even have the opportunity to have been able to go. So I didn't want to come off as one of those creators who was like, drop out and just become a YouTuber. And that's why I never talked about my education journey on my channel. But I think that the message that I do want to send in talking about this is that everyone has their own path of life, and please do not measure yours against mine, against someone else. And if you do things that are slightly out of order or are not conventional, that's totally okay. And please go at your own pace. Looking back at high school, I think I felt so much pressure to do each landmark and each step perfectly, and that's just not how life works, Sorry if I ever have sauce on my face at any point in this video. It's because of the noodles. There's a lot of questions about Shop AmandaRachLee, so sorry if you didn't really care about it, but I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk about this stuff. So this question says, what was the scariest thing about creating the Doodle planner? So I think the scariest thing for me was definitely just all the personal investment that I put into the Doodle planner. So when I started, I was 21 years old, obviously didn't know anything about starting a business. And I think typically with YouTuber merch, people will work with a third-party company where the company will pay for the cost of the products and manufacturing and all of that. And then the YouTuber will essentially just get a revenue share, like a percentage of the profits. But for me, how I did it was I was in charge of everything. So I personally, my own funds are what bought the planners. I designed everything. So it was a big risk. I put up a lot of my own personal savings funds for this. It was definitely scary. It was the first time I'd ever done something like that. But I am really proud and glad that I did it that way, because it in turn gave me a lot of freedom and creative freedom in creating the products. I was able to take my time, do things with the company that I wanted to do without someone kind of like overseeing everything. And it also gave me the opportunity to learn so much about business, running a business, that you can't pay for that type of education. You just kind of have to do it when you're in the thick of it. And I have definitely learned so much over the past 3 years. So it is a little bit more of a slower burn than if I were to have worked with a bigger company who knows how things go and who could have, kind of held my hand throughout all of that. But again, in that previous topic that I mentioned, going at your own pace is super important, and I think that applies to all things, including my business. Naturally, when I asked for juicy questions, there was a lot of questions about my dating life. People are asking whether I have a partner, if I'm seeing someone, if I'm dating anyone, if I've dated anyone. This is my 9-year YouTube anniversary coming up in February. Out of all of those 9 years that I've been on YouTube, I have not once talked about my dating life, shown someone that I've dated, really even mentioned it. I have dated in the past. You know, I'm 23 years old. I think we can admit that. I don't know whether I will ever show any relationship publicly in videos. That's just a personal choice. I have no issue with YouTubers or creators who do that. But for me personally, I have just seen so many like couples and relationships on the internet get scrutinized, and just the mere fact of them being public kind of is an added burden to their relationship. I think my main point of this is to manage your expectations, and just to say that I don't know if I will ever show anything about my relationships on the internet. I do want to keep my channel mostly about what I create and me, so even if I do ever eventually show something about dating or my relationships, it'll be very, very minimal, and it'll only be if something is super serious. But you guys are very respectful in general about like asking me questions like this. I don't think I've ever felt like invaded on my privacy, or people are looking too much into my dating life or anything like that. So yeah, little doodles are very respectful, but I do think obviously naturally people are very curious, just because I have been on the internet for so long and not shown anyone or anything about my dating life. It's kind of a flex. I kind of love it. I feel so mysterious. The next question is, will you take another break during February? So I had been taking month-long YouTube breaks for the past 2 years just to avoid burnout. If you've been following along on my YouTube journey, then a lot of you will know that 2 years ago I really hit a low point in terms of really feeling burnt out, and anxiety and panic attacks were definitely a manifestation of that. So I have been a lot more proactive in catching burnout and also knowing when I need to take a step back. So I'm really proud of myself for that, because I don't think I need to take a full month break in February. I think I've been a lot more proactive in taking smaller breaks throughout the year, especially this past year, which has been so good. And I think that's why I don't need to take a like month-long break, because as you guys probably can tell on the channel, I don't post as many videos. I used to post like once a week, twice a week even sometimes, and that just was not sustainable for me. So I'm currently landing around once every other week, and I think that's what I'm gonna stick to for the next year. And I'm also trying not to give myself the pressure of a posting schedule, because that kind of stresses me out a little. Okay, the next question is big life / shop AmandaRachLee goals down the road. This is a really big question, and honestly probably the main thing that I wanted to talk about in filming this video. When I started Shop AmandaRachLee 3 years ago, as I mentioned, I kind of winged it a lot. I started it super last minute because the planner had been finished, and I didn't really have the energy or time to think about things like the name of the company, the logo, the branding, all of that. It was all really whipped up last minute by me. And in the past 3 years, because of the pandemic and all of that, I felt like I was trying to claw myself to keep up with how fast time was moving. And you know, planners are definitely a timely release, so it's hard to take a step back and think about the company. One of the things that I have been thinking about for the past year is definitely to rebrand Shop AmandaRachLee, so that Shop AmandaRachLee will not be called Shop AmandaRachLee anymore. Nothing is confirmed yet, so I don't even have a name, but I did want to talk about my reasonings for that. First of all, I think Shop AmandaRachLee in itself is just a long name. It's not catchy, okay? And also just in general, with my YouTube username, people always mispronounce it anyways. Some people are like AmandaRachLee, AmandaRachel, AmandaRachLee. I've heard every variation of my username. I think it also sounds a lot like it's just kind of merch. Again, not hating on YouTuber merch. I think there has been sort of a preconceived idea of what YouTuber merch is like, where it's just kind of like a drop shipped blank hoodie with a logo printed on it. And I think hopefully I've been able to show in the past 3 years of doing Shop AmandaRachLee that I do want it to be more than that. My current products, I really take pride in the quality and the design and all of that. And thirdly, I want shopAmandaRachLee to be able to live on its own separately from my channel. Obviously, I'm so grateful for my channel because I would not have been able to start the company without it, and I still want to create products that you guys want and you guys need. But I would really love for the company to be able to live on its own and just have maybe, for example, someone to discover the planner and not even know that it was created by a YouTuber, but still appreciate the products. So I think the name shopAmandaRachLee is limiting to the products, if that makes sense. The next reasoning is I think the name shopAmandaRachLee has put a lot of pressure on myself because you guys know you can probably tell by now I am pretty heavy on feeling like I need to control everything and do everything. And I think with the name shopAmandaRachLee, I felt so much pressure to do everything because that's my name on these products. And I know you guys trust me to put something out, and I still definitely take that very, very seriously. There's probably some things that I don't need to do or someone else can do better, like packaging design or marketing and stuff like that. And I think the name shopAmandaRachLee made me feel like I had to do everything because that's like my name, my face on the brand. And I think if I had a different name that was completely separate from me or my YouTube channel, that would kind of mentally release the pressure of me having to be in charge of everything. And then finally, one of my biggest manifestations or goals, and I don't know how realistic this is, but it's always been my dream. I would love to have my products in Indigo, which is, I guess, the Canadian equivalent of like Barnes and Noble or like Target. It's definitely like a bookstore, their stationery store. And I just remember growing up and going through the stationery section and just being so excited to see the notebooks and the planners. And I think it would be so cool to see my products there. Like, I think I genuinely would cry. But because of that, I think it is really important to have strong branding. And I think an Indigo or a Target would be more likely to have products in their store that are from like a brand. Does that make sense? So all of that to say, I need to think of rebrand names for the company. I have a couple ideas. Nothing has really stuck. But if you guys have any ideas of like cute brand names that you think work well for me, maybe something that could have like an inside joke or a reference, we'll see. I know that it has to be done right. I want everything to be done really thoughtfully, so it will take some time. It will probably not happen for a while, so don't worry. And if it does happen, I will obviously let you guys know and take you guys along on the journey. Oh, that was a lot. I feel like I talked so much. That's probably the biggest question. A lot of people are asking like what other products are coming down the pipeline. Some people are asking whether it be non-stationary products. You know, I always have things planned, so that's all I'll say for that. Some people are asking about stickers. I talked about this on my Twitch stream where like we set our 2022 goals. One of my biggest goals this year is to create stickers. I think for the past 2 or 3 years, I've gotten so many requests from people to design stickers. I let the overwhelming nature of the possibilities consume me. There's just so many possibilities. I was like, what colors, what designs, how big, what texture, all of that. And I was just paralyzed by choice, and I let that stop me from even creating something. And I think what I've had to realize is that not every release that I do needs to be a big thing. So I think I'm gonna start off slow, maybe do a couple sticker releases eventually, and then maybe we can do something bigger. Like, I would love to be able to create like a monthly themed sticker box or something. But starting off slow, of course, I would love to know if you guys have any requests for stickers from me. I'll scroll through the comments and we'll see what I come up with this year. Okay, enough shopAmandaRachLee question. I did want to answer a couple more personal questions. Someone asked about my MBTI or whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert. I am an INFP. So do with that what you will. What was my favorite part of the Permission to Dance tour in LA? I did go to the BTS concert for 2 days in LA. My favorite part was just finally being able to go with some of my LA friends. So I went with Nina, I went with Yura, I also went with Marissa again. And it was just really fun. I think my favorite part was when they were going around on their little moving platforms because they got closer. I was in sections, I think the 200s or 100 section, so it was a pretty good view. still think the Speak Yourself tour is so special to me in my heart, so I think I slightly preferred Speak Yourself over Permission to Dance. But I'm so grateful that I was able to see them live, and they just look so happy to perform again. And then finally, the question that I'm gonna answer is, how are you? Which I think is such a simple question, but I do love when people ask me this because it's such a simple question that can have so many answers. And I think in general, I'm doing really, really well. I feel very grounded recently, which I like, obviously. It's nice to feel like you're in the moment, in the present. There's obviously a couple anxieties that I've been having, but nothing too major. And in general, I'm going into this year, I'm turning 24 this year, which is kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I'm going into my mid-20s, which is crazy because I started this YouTube channel as a teenager when I was like 14, 15 years old. So it's almost been like a decade of my life. But I do like that you guys have been able to see me grow up. And a lot of people have mentioned to me that I seem happier and I seem more mature and all of that, and I feel it. I feel that as well. I'm very happy and grateful for where I'm at in my life currently, and I think that's the biggest thing. So thank you for asking. I do feel really good, and if you're not feeling good, because trust me, I've been there, I just hope you guys know that things pass, that there's different seasons of life, and I really do think it's important to appreciate when things are good, and when things are bad, you just have to realize that it will always not be that bad. It's hard to hear that though when you're in those bottoms, but I promise it does get a little bit better. I think that's the last question that I'm gonna answer. I didn't really get to eat too much of my food while we were chatting because I was just talking your guys' ears off. I did enjoy this a lot because I feel like normally I only get to talk about things as an extension of my bullet journal or what I create. So it was a little more personal than I usually get. Okay guys, I'll talk to you in the next one. Happy New Year.